Hey everyone, welcome back to the next episode of Alison and Paige Talk Canada Reads. I'm Paige,
And I'm Alison.
and this episode we're talking about Etta and Otto and Russell and James by Emma Hooper. Alison's gonna kick us off by sort of giving a brief synopsis of the book, or of the premise of the book.
Yeah, all right. So, I'm going to just give a brief overview of the book. No spoilers yet, and then talk a bit about the author and then who's championing the book for the debate. So, this book, Etta and Otto and Russell and James, it is a bit of a mouthful, but you get used to it after a while. Oh my god, my dog, Ruby, is just picking now to eat dinner behind me. So, she's crunching along. Hopefully, you can't hear it. Anyways, this book was published in 2015, so just over 10 years ago. And the book starts essentially with Otto waking up to his 82-year-old wife, Etta, who's left a note behind and that says that she's going to be walking from Saskatchewan to Halifax to go see the ocean. And I think it's like 3,000 kilometers or something like that. And essentially the book focuses on Etta's journey across the country, with flashbacks back to when Etta and Otto were younger during the Great Depression and World War II. And also included is their friend and neighbor Russell, and then there's James as well. And I can't really talk about who James is without giving some spoilers away. So James is a bit of a mystery person. So that's kind of, you'll just have to read it, I guess. That's kind of a bit of an overview of the book. And then the author is Emma Hooper.
I
Sorry?
actually noticed on the back, I was reading the back after I finished, and it says like kind of about a quick thing about Etta, quick thing about Otto, quick thing about Russell, and then it says, and James, well, James you'll have to meet on the page.
Exactly, yes.
It's like
On the
kind of
page.
mysterious, but yeah, you really do have to read the book to know who James
I like that
is.
on the page sentiment.
Yeah.
But yeah, also Paige read the physical book. I did the audiobook. I'll talk about kind of the differences there if you're thinking about reading this book. Um, and yeah, so the author, Emma Hooper, um, she's from Alberta and she now lives in England. She's an author. This was her debut novel back in 2015. She's also a musician, a violist. She was also talking about how she's brought her like musician mindset into the book. So there's like shorter kind of paragraphs and chapters, and she was talking about how that's kind of a break between movements in a piece, and she was talking about the rhythm of the words. And so if you read the physical book, I didn't get this when I was doing the audiobook, but it seems there's like quite a few breaks and stuff, which is kind of interesting. And she said that she wrote the book as a love letter to my homeland, the Canadian prairies, and that Etta and Otto are kind of loosely based on her maternal grandparents who lived in Saskatchewan. So lots of fun facts about Emma Hooper, musician and author. And then you have the person who's going to be championing the books during the debates. That's Michelle Morgan, who is best known for her role on Heartland, which I like realized growing up. I always saw it on TV, and I knew that there were horses in it. But it's still going. It's on its 18th season. It's the longest running full-hour Canadian series. So it's giving Grey's Anatomy vibes with those 18 seasons. So Michelle Morgan plays the main character on Heartland. And she was born in Calgary, grew up in Toronto, Vancouver, and she loves like engaging stories. She likes directing the TV shows as well. So she likes engaging stories and characters. So that's why she picked this book, Etta and Otto and Russell and James.
If she likes to, stories and characters, then
Mhm.
yeah, the books makes a lot of sense that she would pick something that's fiction and that's sort of character driven. So, that
Totally.
makes a lot.
Yeah.
So I say at this point, if you're thinking about reading the book, pause, because we're gonna kind of start talking about more in depth and spoilers and all that good stuff.
Spoiler
So
alert.
maybe I'll just do like a little very brief kind of summary of the book, or like very like just a little more detail than you gave now that we're kind of talking about spoilers. So
Mhm.
basically Etta is planning to walk across basically almost across Canada, or like a decent amount of it. She's 82 years old. You can tell from the beginning she's suffering from dementia. And then you have Otto, her husband, and then we kind of flashback to when they were younger, like kind of mid to late teens, early 20s. This is during like the Great Depression and the Second World War, and how they started exchanging letters when Otto went off to war. So it turns out Etta was his teacher and they were the same age. And, he doesn't really have anyone to send letters to. So he says, can I send you letters? And then we start to read those letters. And, oh my goodness, Sal.
I was like, I
You're
was
on.
in the last video, so I need to be in this video too.
Exactly. So we read those letters and, oh my goodness, Sal, stop. Back between present, like, or well, because we're present day, which would be what present day in the book would be when they're in their 80s, sort of back and forth between Otto being in the war, and there's a lot of themes in this book that really stand out that I really like appreciated. Like one of them being like, well, obviously a big one is like memory and yeah, the idea of memory, remembering things, and also like how that affects your identity and
Mm.
identity. So, Etta suffering from dementia, we, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this train of thought exactly.
Well, I
Um,
think, yeah, maybe I can help you with that. So
yeah.
I feel like Etta suffering from dementia, like one reason why she embarks on this journey is to gain some control over her life and control over kind of remind herself of who she is. And she has that piece of paper that like reminds her of who she is and her family members and stuff. And because I feel like as you get older, you have less control of your life, whether society gives you less control or also things like dementia where you have less control over your brain. And so this is her like trying to you know work through that, I guess, and kind of go on this journey that she's always wanted to do.
Yeah, and to like help find a sense of identity, like it's a big goal of hers. And
Yeah.
Otto, from the get go, from when we start this book, he's supportive, and he's not going to try and stop her.
Yeah.
And Russell kind of goes off and tries to stop her and bring her home, but Otto has resigned to the fact that she needs to do this.
Yeah.
So, I think he's like supporting her in that sense. And I feel like her whole life lived in this like small town. I get the sense of that. And now she says, I need to have my own adventure. Where Otto went off to war and he was gone. And, that was a big like part of his life, and he left and came back, and so she never had any sort of like she never left. So I think maybe that's part of it too.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And then another big part of it is like this sort of fragmented narrative where we're going back and forth. We'll get like a page about Otto's childhood, and then a page about Etta on her walk, like fast forward like 60 years later. And then we're going back to Etta's childhood, and then we go back and forth, and it's all these like, back and forth. So I actually really liked that part of the book because it kept you on your toes. It kept like, there were short chapters, short snippets, which I really liked. And it definitely made me like keep reading. So I was like, oh, it's only like another page until the next chapter. Like I'll just keep
Yeah.
reading. But I feel like that really didn't sound like it didn't come across in the audiobook at all, unfortunately.
Yeah. And the author did this on purpose. Like she wanted it to be a bit confusing and non-linear, which I feel like speaks to kind of at a state of mind. Like she's
Yeah.
kind of meandering along. And yeah, I mean the audiobook that didn't come across as well. I found it kind of hard to follow the audiobook. I feel like maybe if I had the physical book and was reading it in front of me, that would have like come across a bit better. But on the audiobook it would just jump, 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 and I didn't know it was the start of a new paragraph or new chapter or whatever. And so I was like, wait a second, where are we? Like
Mhm.
what part of the book? Who's who? Is Etta Otto? Is Otto Etta? Like it didn't like I enjoyed the audiobook and I enjoyed the like the voices and kind of that perspective because I love audiobooks for that reason, but I feel like I would have been less confused if I had the physical book.
Yeah, and I get and part of the like Emma Hooper's intent was to confuse us as
Yeah.
well a little
Yeah.
in a way, because Etta's confused, so we're kind of in her shoes in that sense.
Yeah.
So, in a way, the audiobook like definitely achieved that. And there were times where I was reading the book and I kind of had to reread like a sentence or a paragraph because I'm like, yeah, where am I right now? Like, what's the context? And towards the end, it gets more confusing because Etta starts to think she's Otto, and like, it's really
Yeah.
forth. So, you know, that was definitely like this like memories kind of playing tricks on you. That was definitely a theme that really came across very strongly. As I said, we've got just sort of regular paragraphs, and then there were letters that we were reading. That we saw letters that were between Otto and Etta. We saw letters between Etta and her sister. We saw letters between Etta's sister and her family. We saw them between present day Otto and Etta. Like, how do you feel like the letters sort of added to the story, or you know, how do you think that impacted the story as opposed to just having sort of a narrative?
You know what I think actually? I think like in the physical book were the letters actually like letters?
They were like italicized. Yeah.
I wonder, like, for me, like, the letters were a part of the story, but I feel like they were more impactful for you.
Yeah.
Like, I think
So
that I really
yeah,
thought.
yeah.
Sorry, can you show me?
Yeah, it might not be easy
Show
to
me.
see. It would be like this says like Etta, comma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like.
We didn't come across that they were sort of separate kind of.
Yeah, it didn't
Yeah.
really much in the audiobook. And I feel like, yeah, I mean, like, I think they were a really important part of the story. Especially Otto's letters to Etta. Like, he wasn't even mailing them, which I thought was kind
No,
of like
it's kind of sad.
sad. Yeah.
First he was mailing them, I feel like, to his sister's son, I
Yeah.
think, on the off chance that like they would get to her, and then eventually she was just like, yeah, putting them away. I was like, that's really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean the letters between Alma, Etta's sister, and her. You know, like I
Yeah.
did really like the letters between Etta and Otto when they were younger, and kind
Yeah.
of Otto learning how better to read and write. Because that was also like the blossoming of their romance, essentially. So, um, yeah. What did you think of the letters?
Yeah, I really liked the letters because I think the letters were like intimate in general, and like when you write something down, you might write something down that you can't say out loud to somebody's face, and I think
Yeah.
that's like part of it is like the like vulnerability of that.
Hmm.
Um, so, and I think you know, yeah, as you said, this blossoming of Etta and Otto's relationship happened on the page. So I think that was really nice to see. Um,
I just wish though, like I need some resolve between the love triangle between Russell,
yeah,
Etta, and Otto.
yeah,
Like Russell and Etta, I mean, they were dancing every night. They were falling in love, it seemed. And then Otto comes back, like Otto came back. They didn't actually talk about did Otto actually come back in the book?
yeah, yeah.
Um yeah, I just that didn't feel
Thing.
resolved because
Oh no, no. It's at the like the very end. It's like she's waiting for his train.
yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like what
Because they end up because Russell and Etta kissed, right? I
and I think
think.
they slept together too.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. So I
And
think.
they were like he was so in love with her, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, maybe Etta wasn't as in love with him. Like it just at the end I was like, oh, I wanted some sort of understanding of how because Russell still throughout like the next 60 years was still their neighbor. Like and she Etta still referred to Russell as her friend. So
yeah,
maybe maybe it was just like Russell was really kind to her, you know, when she was having the miscarriages and stuff like that. Like, so there's a, you know, he was there when she was really in a vulnerable position. So maybe, you know, she grew to love him out of that, but it wasn't, didn't compare to what she had with Otto. Like, I guess it's
yeah,
supposed to be ambiguous, right? Like, much like the
yeah,
ending.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, I really liked the love triangle. Like I felt for Russell. He was like pining for her, but he never really tried. I guess he never did enough to, you know, yeah, like Otto was the one who said, "Can we write letters?" And then he was vulnerable in those letters. And Russell was always around, but yeah, I don't think he took action at
no, I
all.
don't think he took action. No. It
So
was always like, okay.
yeah, pretty much. He was resigned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and just another like random thing, just in regards to like writing the letters and stuff, and how Otto like learned how to write and read like in the book. Um, how Otto's name is like Otto and Etta's is Etta. Like I think just that like sort of similarity in the names like is
Yeah.
I think that's on purpose. I
Yeah.
think you
Yeah.
know that connection there. I
Yeah.
just like um anyway, so then yes, we talked about the letters. Um and then I guess we could talk about James. You know James.
Yeah. Yes, I know James.
So
Um,
how did we first encounter James?
James was the name of Etta's sister Alma's unborn child. So I guess she died in childbirth, and then, neither of them made it. So that's the first time, and it's in that like reminder note that I think Etta writes for herself. James
Yeah,
nephew never lived, or
yeah,
whatever it says.
yeah.
And then there's the Coyote James, who I was so confused by this part of the story, and I guess like this book is kind of suspended between whimsical and
Mm-hmm.
reality, because you also have this 82-year-old with bleeding feet walking across the entire country. Like you need to
Yeah,
like suspend
just
your
valid
yeah, a
a
little
little.
bit.
Yeah, yeah,
So James is this coyote that talks to Etta and like helps her along her journey. He disappears for a bit towards the end, but then comes back. But
yeah.
yeah, and you and I were kind of. I mean, you and I were kind of talking about whether James was real or not. Like the coyote was real, and I thought it. I want to say it was real. Yeah, I don't know if James was actually talking to Etta, but I believe that there was probably some coyote following her or supporting her in some way.
And
I don't know.
James, like,
What do you think?
James definitely was like Etta's like sounding board, and like in her
Yeah.
voice too. Like he, yeah, was kind of reflecting herself back onto herself, and was like supporting her. Um, yeah, and obviously the coyote is named after her unborn nephew. Um, and I was kind of looking online, sort of what people are saying about James, and they said he's like her guardian angel, which I
Yeah.
thought was nice. Is he real or not? It's so hard to say. Like I go back and forth.
Yeah.
Uh, I kind of pictured him being real, like the whole time, knowing that yeah, we kind of have to suspend reality a little
Yeah.
bit. But he was like protecting her and her companion, and it was really like important to her entire journey.
Yeah.
So I
Absolutely.
think
And
it's
she
like
was
a
really
really
sad when she had to leave him behind, like to cross
that
the
was
river.
really sad. I got really sad. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna be reading this if like something happens to James. But he's okay.
Just like
Uh,
Cynthia in the beginning, like the kitten that Otto thought was actually it was actually a gopher.
oh
I hated
yeah,
that. I hated that plot line. I was like, oh, this cat. Oh, I don't like
dude,
the cat. Like, yeah,
yeah. Oh my
some
god.
animal
Yeah,
stuff. I was like, eh.
yeah,
But I'm glad that James was okay.
yeah. James is okay. Yeah, James made the cover, so that's James.
Oh, that is nice. Yeah. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah,
That's so sweet. Oh, goodness.
yeah,
That's very cute.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Also, why do you think Russell went up north? Like, that felt random to me.
That was so random. I
Yeah.
think like he had lived his whole life in this small town. He never left. He literally bought this farm when he was like 20
Yeah.
and 80. And I think maybe once he kind of broke free from the small town, like he had never left the province or anything. I think once he broke free from the small town, he was like, "Oh, I can do it. I can go wherever I want."
Yeah.
Maybe that now that he like broke that barrier, he's like, I'm going to just do what I want. What was the whole thing with the deer? Like he's always watching for
I know.
deer.
I thought that was something in his childhood. I meant to look that up. Didn't he do something with his dad or something? Or like his uncle?
Oh, yeah. He was like watching for deer with his dad or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
that confused me at the beginning. I was like, who is this guy? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, but Russell's cool. Russell's cool. I had like another random quote, just like about the tone of the book.
Yeah, we
Um,
can talk about the tone, and
the tone,
I'll add my
the
thoughts.
tone the tone is definitely like some level of confusion, some level of like underlying I don't know if anxiety is the word, but un, un unrest. like, so there's a quote at the beginning that when Etta leaves Otto a note or like a letter when she leaves, she says, "I will try to remember to come back."
Yeah.
And like, is she coming back? What do you mean try to remember?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of sad. That's like
Yeah.
scary. So that's like right at the beginning, and so that
Yeah.
sets the tone of that. And then, I thought one part that sticks out to me is like when Russell and Otto kind of are aware of their parents listening to the radio,
Mm-hmm.
and there's something on the radio they don't want them to hear. And I
Yeah.
think at that point, on like what time, like what year it is, like it's World War II, and they're
Yeah.
recruiting people for the war, and they're trying to protect their kids, and just like that uncertainty, because we aren't told that like explicitly at that time, so we're
We're
almost
not told
almost
anything explicitly.
no, we're not told like what year it is. We're not told like much. So you kind of have to put together the pieces, just like the kids are trying to put together the pieces. And
Yeah.
just like memories are not complete, and Edda's memories aren't complete. So
That's
yeah, it's like
interesting.
active read. You have to like actively read this book,
Yeah.
be thinking. It's not like a no brainer.
No, and that's very interesting that we're kind of like getting from different narrators, like from Etta, and like the memories and kind of piecing that together. That's interesting that you had that tone at the beginning because my experience was very different.
Mm.
The way the audiobook and the person was talking, it was very like, I don't know if you noticed in the beginning there was a lot of like they talked a lot about the minutia of everyday life, like, oh, I
Yeah,
went to the store, thank
yeah,
you, or I ordered looked for this kind of jam, and like I found that was kind of like comforting in some way, like the and I found myself at times being like, okay, let's speed this up, like let's do this, but also that was life back then. It's so different than life now. It was
yeah,
slower. You couldn't like we have this very on demand kind of world right now, and so it kind of
yeah,
forces you to be like, okay, we're gonna slow down and we're gonna like make our way through this kind of book. And yeah, I kind of thought that was interesting.
yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
So, as far as Canada Reads goes, we've got the theme that we keep revisiting. So, the broadest theme is a book that every Canadian should read. So, the more I think about that, and the more we like talk about all these different books, is like that's a big statement.
It is a big statement, and yeah, yeah, we've
Like,
kind of this is our third book. We're kind of trying to wrestle with that with.
wrestle. Yeah, I think like I really enjoyed this book. I actually really enjoyed this book in the end. Like I'm glad like I have a physical version of it.
How
Like
many stars
I
on Goodreads?
like probably like definitely at least four.
Four.
Like
Oh, at least. Wow,
at
you really
least
liked it.
yeah, maybe 4.5. Like yeah, I really liked it.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you like what it was like that like really pushed it to that? I know we'll talk about the theme in a sec, but I'm just curious.
I mean, I just liked I like the characters. The characters were endearing. I liked Etta. I liked all of them.
Yeah.
I liked how it moved. Like there were like short chapters, and I liked how, I love the letters too, back and forth, and reading.
Yeah. Do you think if you saw this on a bookshelf and picked up and read the back, you would have been like, yes, I want to
I
read
would
this?
I
Yeah,
wouldn't have
same.
read.
Yeah.
No,
Wow,
and
that's
I think
cool.
I don't know why. Like I don't know why I wouldn't have read it. Like it just yeah, I don't know why I wouldn't have read it. But yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
glad I
same.
did.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed reading it. So if someone said a book every Canadian should read, I mean, that's a really good question. Like I think a lot of people would like this book.
Yeah. I think so.
As far as like being an enjoyable book, I feel like the gravity of a book every Canadian should read. That's just a really difficult like thing to say. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people enjoy this book. I think it does provide a lot of insight into different generations, war, the effects of war,
And the
French.
narrator is, like an older woman, so it helps.
Yeah,
Like that's they're often silenced in society, so there's more like kind of voice and perspective there.
another perspective there. And a lot of the books I read are narrator, the main characters are like in their 20s. Like that's like the
Yeah.
most common, unfortunately, in media, movies, TV. It's all like people in their 20s
Yeah.
or
Because society
that's
doesn't really value
no
old
old
people.
yeah old
Yeah.
people and older women. So like yeah, so I think this is a really good insight into that, and I think a lot of the themes are really good. The themes of you know memory, belonging, adventure. It talks about like different provinces across Canada. Of course, I'm tickled when they say Halifax. Um,
Yeah.
So it's kind of like nice to include a decent amount of the provinces.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I
so
think the prairies are sometimes like, I mean, I think Saskatchewan and Manitoba are often forgotten.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, so I thought that was good. Like in terms of a book every Canadian should read, I think for me, for the books we've read so far, it's still a Two Spirit Journey on top, and then this one, and then Watch Out for Her, the previous one.
yeah,
Just because, yeah, prairies are often forgotten, and just like the characters, and kind of who they represent as well. I think that, yeah, what you said is a lot. I think a lot of people would enjoy this book. Whether
yeah,
it's like every Canadian should read this book, maybe.
yeah.
I think a good case could be made for it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And like the case for it also is, it's it's a digestible book. Like you definitely have to think a bit, but it's okay to have a little bit of like not necessarily a challenge, but it is nice to read a book that yeah you have to just put a bit of thought into, I guess, and
Yeah,
reflection.
yeah,
Um, so and then the sub theme, definitely the theme of this year, I definitely think it fits into the theme of a book that changes the narrative because
yes,
you have this 82-year-old woman who walks from Saskatchewan to Halifax. Like that's pretty like I no like that's just wild.
yeah,
Like and then to have an 82-year-old woman do that changes the narrative of like what older women are capable
yeah,
of. So
totally.
that. And even like change the narrative in small ways, and hearing about Otto being in the war, like hearing about that. I mean, obviously we know that war caused a lot of pain and suffering, but to hear Otto talk about that and experience that, it's good to hear his story. But yeah, I think definitely the main thing is Etta, being capable.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I came across this quote from the author, saying that she originally saw Otto as the hero of the novel. My impulse was to write about Otto walking because I think it's societally ingrained to have the man do the thing. But I thought it would be a lot more interesting if I switched that around. That's where the story comes from. Etta needs to do the journey this time.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah. I
speaks
like
to
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't think this book wouldn't be nearly as good if Otto was
I
the one.
agree. I kind of be like,
I'd be like, oh,
okay.
just where she's like, yeah, a woman. So, yeah, I definitely think it follows into that category. And I agree, like a book every Canadian should read. I mean, I think with Two Spirit Journey, just with Canada's like history that we like to sweep under the rug,
And present.
and oh yes, yeah, history and present that we like to ignore or pretend like isn't affecting people. So I think that's a really good book for every Canadian to read. And yeah, I think this is a good book. I think I enjoyed it, and I think a lot of people would.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really glad we read it.
Me too.
Um, yeah, just a brief bit about the ending of the book.
What do you
Where
think happened?
like so yeah, for just to remind people, basically like she ends up at the ocean. We know
Yeah.
that for sure.
Yeah.
And it's very ambiguous from that on because like goes in the ocean and then it's hard to tell like what happens next after that. Like she goes in the water and like does she die? Does she get out? That's the question. I I'm not sure. I feel like I think just whatever it is that she's at peace. Like she's at peace with the fact that she made it. She had a goal and that was to get to the ocean and she achieved it. So
Yeah.
I think no matter what ends up actually happening, like she's at peace with herself and her
Yeah.
life. And I think Otto is at peace with that as well because she's happy.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm really not sure what would happen at the end. Do you have like an idea of what you think happened?
Yeah. For me, Otto was the one who passed away because her spirit like visited her while she was in the ocean
Yeah,
because of the time at war where he was like in the water on the beach and there was all that like
yeah,
no one died.
yeah.
Um and yeah, I thought maybe she was dreaming that she made it to the ocean. Like she was still in the nursing home, but she dreamed that James rapped on the window and then she walked to the ocean and then
Oh,
I do think Otto passed away and I I was kind of curious what other people thought and some people thought that yeah, Otto passed away. His spirit visited Etta in the ocean before it left, saying goodbye, and then Russell came back down to Saskatchewan, and Etta and Russell lived out the rest of their lives together because he was like kind of processed things while he was up there. So I thought that was interesting, maybe. But yeah, it's meant to be ambiguous, as we said, but yeah, I guess it's open to interpretation, whatever you think it is, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Like, I like when endings are a little more clear, personally. I think I totally get the choice, especially because of the themes of memory and confusion and things like that. So I think the ending was well done in that sense. But I do like to have an ending defined by the author.
It's interesting, my feelings about endings when it came to this book and to the thriller. With the thriller, I was annoyed with the ending.
Yeah.
Because I want ambiguity in my ending of a thriller,
Yeah.
but I didn't didn't necessarily love having ambiguity in this context because I felt like there were too many things to tie up.
Yeah.
That didn't need to be tied up, I guess, but in my mind they needed to be tied up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's funny. Like, you're not happy that things were tied up at the end of Watch Out for Her, but then you're also not happy that things were.
I'm not happy with any
want?
endings. Yeah,
What do you want?
I don't know.
Yeah, so, and just one more thing, because you read the audiobook. So this is like an example of like a short chapter towards the end.
Yeah.
And then this is
Yeah.
each is different like thought. And then like that.
Those are different chapters.
This one's about like when they reached the tip of the peninsula, Etta climbed over the safety fence, blah blah. And then the next is about Otto. And then the next
That's interesting.
about Otto in the past on the train. And then the next is Russell lending Etta his horse to go see Otto at the train. And then we're back to Etta, and then we're back to Otto at present. So it is flipping back and forth, and it's continually.
I like that style, actually. I think I would have liked the physical book better, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Like, some books are better physical books, and some are better audiobooks. It really depends. And I guess you don't know a lot of the time unless someone specifically says. So yeah, I was really happy with this book. It's hard to compare the books, but this was my favorite so far.
Wow. All right.
But I'm going to compare. And they're all very different so far. Very different.
Yeah, they are very different. My favorite's still Two-Spirit Journey, I would say. So far.
So far. Oh, yeah. So, I guess we'll see. We've discussed 3 books so far, and we've got 2 left. Next one we're going to read, Alison can just introduce it.
Yeah, so the next one we're going to read is Dandelion by Jamie Chai Yun Liu, which is very exciting. Looking forward to reading that one. And then the last one is Jenny's Boy, so that'll be the last in the shortlist.
Yeah. So far, I have Dandelion on audiobook. I borrowed it from the library. I'm also still on the wait list for the physical book. It's like kind of I'm like about to get that, so I may even do a little some audiobook, some physical, or some.
And I'm just showing off.
Yeah, I know, it's back and forth. We'll see, or maybe just audiobook. We'll kind of just see where we're
at.
I think
ebook. Yeah.
You the ebook.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Let us know if you have any thoughts on any of these books or any comments or anything. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
Thanks for everyone who's been listening so far. We've been enjoying it.
Yeah. Shout out to Amelia, our fan.
Woo! Thanks. Our number 1 fans.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Happy reading.
All right. Bye.
Bye.